Welcome back to State of the Association. I'm your host, Nash Roberts, and we are back once again to recap week 2 of the NFL season because yesterday I was a little bit pressed for time. I was able to get through, I believe it was 4 teams, but guess what? 3 of those were NFC South teams. So I guess I was just really feeling the Saints, Bucks, and Panthers that day. But we're going to go more in depth on the NFL season. I've also got some NBA news to talk about. Welcome back. Thank you between the Atlanta Falcons and the Philadelphia Eagles. And for Philadelphia, this game was really reminiscent of the ending of last year for them. And I know personally because I am an Eagles fan. And it was not pretty because we once again beat ourselves. And I know a lot of times NFL fans are going to jump at the refs. They're going to say, hey, this is, Eagles versus refs. This is so-and-so, whatever their favorite team is against the refs. But you really can't blame the refs in this situation because we beat ourselves in 3 different situations. On a crucial fourth down, I believe it was, for the conversion, Saquon Barkley dropped a 3-yard pass that would have clinched the game. So then Atlanta gets the ball, and they go down the field. There's, I believe, a minute and about 20 seconds left on the clock. They go down the field in 40 seconds and score a touchdown. Kirk Cousins to Drake London. And then, so our offense messed up. Our offense lost us the game. Then our defense, our defense is what technically leads to, the loss because they allowed the touchdown. But it was really set up by the offensive drive, the drive before. And then, so we lose the game twice on those fronts, and then we lose it a third time because, honestly, that last drive, I was feeling optimistic because we completed our first pass, and really, we had all the time in the world. We had 2 timeouts, about 40 seconds, and we just had to get Jake Elliott in range, and Jake Elliott has got a leg. But then what we did instead, we threw an interception into triple coverage, and I don't blame Jalen for this one because ultimately he was trying to make a play. But you do have to be smarter because this is not a situation where we can risk throws like that. And as a result, it led to an interception, and that was the game. And the Atlanta Falcons are 1-1 on the year, and so are the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's two very different 1-1s because Atlanta, they're feeling real optimistic right now. Philly, they're kind of wondering if this is going to be continuation of last year. I don't think it will be because they have very good coordinators this year, but there's some things ironed out for the Eagles for sure. For the Falcons, I really like this game for them because even though this was like a 22-21 game, this was a pretty clean game from both offenses. And for the Falcons especially, Kirk Cousins threw 2 picks last week. He had none this game. He had 2 touchdowns. And Kyle Pitts, he hasn't been the best at getting utilizing the offense. And it was the same with Drake London aside from the final drive for the most part. But London ended up with, I believe it was 6 receptions. No, I think it was 5. 5 receptions for 64 yards and a touchdown. So he had a solid game. Kyle Pitts didn't get used much, but two of their 3 primary offensive weapons are being used right now. So you want to work Pitts in more, but Bijan's getting used, and Drake London was used somewhat well. And Bijan's really been really good for this team. And the Falcons, if they can get things together, if they can play like the version of them that they were last night, this is a very serious team and one that is going to upset some contenders. I could very well see in the regular season, I'm not sure who they're playing, but I could very well see them upset some top-tier teams. They have all the talent to do that. They have a good to great quarterback, depending on how I feel about Kirk Cousins. They have some very good offensive weapons. They have a solid defense. Atlanta is a serious team if they can get it all together. And for Philly, I think they will recover, but it's a rough week, especially with how you lost that game. What's going on with Travis Kelce? He has had 39 receiving yards throughout the first 2 games to start the year. And that's very unlike him because Travis Kelce, if it was another tight end, if it was, say, George Kittle, you could say, oh, they're using him more, to block for the run game. And that is a valid point for someone like George Kittle, but what Travis Kelce brings to the table is he is a receiving tight end, first and foremost. That is what he brings to your team. That is where he has his most value as a player. So when you are not catching passes consistently, that's when a problem arises. And we saw his production decline a little bit last year. He didn't reach 1,000 yards for the first time in a while, and I believe he was injured at some point during that year, but we did see his production drop a little bit last year. But in the playoffs, he was able to recover. He did really, really well in the playoffs, and the Chiefs ended up winning the Super Bowl, of course. But this year for Travis Kelce, it's been a much rougher start, at 19.5 yards a game. That amount of receiving yards a game would have him on track for 331 receiving yards throughout the entire season on this current pace. And do I think that's going to be the case? Absolutely not. I think Kelce's way too talented. I think he's still too good of a receiving tight end to end up with something that low. But the fact that that's even a possibility and he's got off to such a slow start, I think it's pretty concerning. And for the Chiefs, you don't have the best wide receivers. Rashee Rice is really solid. Xavier Worthy looks good. But in general, your main receiver has been Travis Kelce ever since you lost Tyreek Hill. Especially before you got Rashee Rice, there was a gap year there between, Hill and Rice. You didn't have anyone but Travis Kelce, and now, thankfully, Rice is able to take on a little bit more of that responsibility, but your number 2 wide receiver is a rookie, and then the other guy, Hollywood Brown, he's injured right now. So I would love to see more from Travis Kelce because I think ultimately the Chiefs are going to need that versatility and that diversity in the passing game if they want to even have a chance to three-peat. So I think Kelce will improve throughout the year. I don't think that's much of a hot take either, but something needs to be done because he has been very off these first 2 games. And if the Chiefs are going to be serious this year, they need Will Levis and just what's going on with him. He has 3 interceptions to start the year. And, over the first couple of weeks, that's okay because there's going to be outliers. There's going to be interceptions. And, with a small sample size, if you throw a couple of picks in a game, that's going to look pretty bad. So you can excuse the number of turnovers he's had. But the problem with Will Levis is where these turnovers are coming and just the low football IQ that is on display because as a quarterback, your IQ of the game is one of the most important assets you can have. Forget the arm strength, and trust me, Will Levis has plenty of that. You need to be able to manage the game and just know what you're doing and make good decisions. And that's where Will Levis has really struggled for the Titans this year. Going into this year, I was really excited to watch him play. I was focused on more of the physical abilities that he had, that he was gifted as a football player. But his IQ right now just isn't there. And I think he has potential because of his physical tools. But really, I think the best move might be, making a veteran signing. I don't know who you could go out and get right now or try to trade for a guy like Joe Flacco, for example, and let Will Levis sit behind him and wait for another year. And then next year you can kind of go into it. And Levis, he's gained some knowledge from that veteran QB. And now he's out and ready to actually use the tools that he has and the knowledge he has gained to be a solid NFL quarterback because right now he's costing his team these games. Because right now the Titans are not at a point where they're, a bottom tier team in the league. Are they going to make the playoffs? Probably not, but they're having close games with, a team like the Jets. And even the Bears they went 7-10 last year. They can be solid. So the Titans are having close games with all right teams, and they're losing because of their quarterback. So I think that quarterback needs time to sit and learn behind a veteran mentor QB. So I think that's what the Titans really need because you're not going to bottom out, so you're not going to get a top pick, and then you're not going to make the playoffs most likely either. So you're going to be somewhere stuck in mediocrity. So it's best to just roll with Will Levis because he has all the physical tools that you need and just let him learn the game more because right now he's making some boneheaded turnovers and it's costing the team. So you get a solid, stable quarterback for now that is going to allow the team to coast, maybe go 7-10, 8-9, and that's a successful year because you just focus on developing your quarterback. That's my take on the Will Levis situation. I think he has all the talent in the world. He just needs to work on his IQ, and I think the Titans should aid him in helping with that because they're not going to be able to move on from him the easiest. They can always use something, but in general, I think Levis is going to be the guy under center for them next year. So I think you just need to do better in terms of allowing him to gain knowledge of the game, and don't throw him out there yet, because right now week 2 of the NFL season. So now we're going to move over to the NBA. There's a couple talking points. First off, Isaiah Thomas believes that he can still play at a high level in the NBA, and he can see himself playing for 3 more years. I disagree with it, and it's good for him to have confidence, because confidence, all the guys in the NBA, single one of them have some sort of physical ability that is going to allow them to, play at a high level. But it's the confidence that sets the stars apart from a bench warmer. If you see a guy get opportunity to be a number 1 scoring option on a bad team, that team might not win a lot of games, but he's going to put up production, and whether or not that's sufficient is another story. But they all have the talent to do something in this league. So confidence is a huge thing. But if we're talking about physical tools, Isaiah Thomas is on the shorter, no pun intended, shorter into that, as a 5'9" guard. And, the NBA, they're just moving away from that. And it's never been dominated by, 6-footers. But the NBA, we're seeing more and more just big men coming in, tall and lanky selves, Victor Wembanyama, Chet Holmgren, guys like that. That's what the league is shifting to. So as time goes on, Isaiah Thomas, his archetype as a player, it just becomes more and more outdated. And what we've seen from him, because, you can say that on paper all you want, how's his actual on-the-court impact? It hasn't been that great. He didn't get much play for his Suns, but when he has played in the most recent couple of years, it hasn't been very good. He hasn't been a great defender, and he has not been a good defender at all, and he has not been efficient. So he doesn't bring much value to your team in spite of that physical ability either. So he has the confidence, and that's good for him. But I don't know that he has what it takes anymore to be a high-level NBA player. And I love IT. He was great over on the Boston Celtics, and I've been rooting for him for a while. But I think at this point, the negatives outweigh the positives in terms of having on your team. He can be a good culture guy. Everyone loves IT, but is he going to be worth whatever contract you want to give him? And at this point, his value's not even that high contract-wise. But would you rather develop a young guy, or would you go out and sign an aging veteran who is inefficient and struggles at defense? So I just don't know what the place is for IT anymore, and it's a shame to say that, but I don't know that he could play for 3 more years, consistently getting out there every night. And also, especially, I have my doubts about him, being able to play at a high level. But I'd love to see him back in the league. I just don't. That's not going to be at a high level. And good for him for having the confidence. However, I said the other day that Philadelphia fans they're going to tear apart Paul George if he doesn't play well for them. And I think, first of all, I think Paul George is going to have a pretty solid season for the 76ers, because he gets to be, maybe the third option on some nights where he doesn't have to take on the entire scoring load. And he didn't have to do that for the Clippers either, but he was second option there behind Kawhi. And Kawhi was injured quite a bit. And, Kawhi's always just kind of dealt with injuries. So Paul George was asked to be the number 1 scorer a lot of times for the Clippers. And he can do that, but then that's going to be a negative to other assets of his game. Because as a forward, while yes, he is one of the best, ball handling forwards that we have seen, he ultimately, he plays really smooth. He serves best as not a guy you want on ball every single play. So having guys like Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey able to take some touches away, I think that's going to be really beneficial for Paul George, and it's going to help his overall impact on the offense, and I think he'll be able to focus more on the defensive end of the floor. So for beginners, I think Paul George will be really good for Philly this year. I like his fit a lot there, because he's definitely better than Tobias, because Tobias is just a scorer, nothing else. So Paul George is already a huge upgrade from that. But in terms of what Draymond Green said about Philadelphia fans, to me, it's really interesting, because Philadelphia is one of the bigger markets in sports, but a lot of times stars might want to get out of there. They might not want to play there in the first place. And I think that is just because of the culture of the sports fan base in the city. It is one of, it's considered toxic, especially Eagles fans, that that is a term that gets thrown around a lot because they can oftentimes kind of see the glass half empty. They can be really negative, boo their own team because they don't like the product they see on the field, on the court. And so I think that plays into the fact that Philadelphia is a big market, but sometimes stars aren't going to want to play there. And so I think it's just, in general, an issue with the culture of the city. And do I think it matters much in the long run? No, because as long as you can build a competent basketball team and in professional leagues, guys are going to be self-confident in themselves. You can hopefully kind of drown out that noise and be able to focus on your job, and that is playing. That is actually being on the basketball court and doing what you need to do there. So you can kind of drown that out. But in general, I think stars are going to have a harder time drowning that out over in Philadelphia than they would somewhere else. And that's a big market thing too. You know, the lights are too bright. But I think it happens with Philadelphia more just because of the culture of the city. And once again, I think Paul George will be fine. I just think it's interesting how I view Philadelphia as a major market compared to something like New York, where, yeah, it's a big market, but the culture of the city, it makes people not want to go there as much as they would somewhere like the WNBA record for scoring in a single season as a rookie. And I think it's time we just quit lying to ourselves. Caitlin Clark is without a shadow of a doubt the Rookie of the Year, and the debate was over before the year started because this was the most hyped up, most talented prospect that we have seen coming into the WNBA in forever, and she has lived up to that every step of the way. She has taken this Indiana Fever team, she has made them a draw, and she has backed it up. She has the production on the court as well and the impact. So she's impacting the league as a whole. It's marketing. When the Indiana Fever come to town, that's the hottest ticket in town. And then her on-the-court production has been good. And not only are her stats good, she is impacting the game on the floor as well. Because so just to have a combination of those three, to not have empty stats, to have value stat-wise and on the court, and to value... to just increase the value of the NBA, WNBA as a whole, Caitlin Clark is without a doubt the Rookie of the Year. And this record is just another reason why. It's been a record-setting rookie year. And Caitlin Clark, she has all the tools to be the face of the WNBA for the next 10, 15 years. And I think she very much is that reportedly the Golden State Warriors have dreams of acquiring Giannis. And, you know, I have dreams of being a billionaire. It's not going to happen. You know, I would love to see Giannis play alongside a guy like Steph Curry, but we're getting enough of that. We got Steph Curry light over in Milwaukee. We got Damian Lillard, and Lillard didn't have a very good year last year, but I believe he has all it takes to bounce back. We saw it with Rudy Gobert, where the first year on the Minnesota Timberwolves didn't work out very well, but you give him another year under that system, another year to learn, gain chemistry, it's going to be a lot better. I think the Milwaukee Bucks are going to be a lot better this year. You know, and I'm not the biggest fan of Doc Rivers, but I think having another year as opposed to, you know, kind of learning a system coming in mid-season, I think it's going to do wonderful for that team. And I think Milwaukee Bucks will be a lot better this year, and Giannis is going to be back in MVP conversations because, you know, Giannis has put up production for so many years now that we're kind of numb to it. But I think if the Milwaukee Bucks are able to be a top seed, maybe the one seed, you know, they go out and surprise people, then I think Giannis has a very good case for MVP, and I think he has a case anyways. But the media and fans, maybe they don't want to look at it that way because the Bucks, they had 49 wins last year, and Giannis wasn't doing anything especially new. But so I think the Bucks will be a lot better this year. And, you know, going to the Warriors side, yeah, they could sure use someone like Giannis, but they're not going to get him. So right now you just got to focus on developing the young guys like Jonathan Kuminga. You've got to keep Steph Curry happy. You know, you lost Klay Thompson, but Steph's going to be a lifer. Draymond's probably going to be a lifer. You can kind of celebrate that, and I think you're going to be kind of stuck in mediocrity as long as you have those guys. But then Jonathan Kuminga is only going to get better. You've got some young guys to develop. So I think the Warriors, you know, in a couple of years from now, they'll be solid once again. I think they're just going to have a couple of years to retool, kind of let Steph and Draymond wind down their careers at this point. because they're getting up there in age. But yeah, I bet they would have Giannis. That would catapult them back to contention. But I don't know that they're going to be able to get another start, and especially I don't think they'll be able to get Giannis. So I think it's kind of a funny story in general, the fact that they're interested in Giannis. Yeah, I think 29 other NBA teams are too. So for the Warriors, I think right now you just have to ride it out. I don't know what star they could really get. And for the Bucks, I think it'll be episode of State of the Association. As always, I'm your host, Nash Roberts. I don't think this was a smooth episode in terms of my delivery, my flow. I'm just trying to get better about that, and it's going to come better with time. I've had a couple better episodes, and by the time I'm out of college, I'll have had 6 years of doing this. So right now, this is just trying to get better. And eventually there is a revenue stream with it, but that's not the main goal. The main goal is I want to go into sports broadcasting, and why not build up 6 years of experience already doing that by talking about sports. And I enjoy doing it. Getting out individual segments on YouTube, it can be kind of a task. I just don't have the best software right now. So processing, I could have 6 3-minute segments I have to get out there. And that's going to take hours to process on the software I currently have. But overall, I do enjoy it. And we're trying to get better each and every time. Thank you for listening. It has been State of the Association. I am your host, Nash Roberts.